a children's series. My son's doing children's books on the Book of Enoch, a series on that, and I thought I would do a series on the life of the Messiah, beginning with the story of Joachim and Anna, and then going into Mary, and then the infancy, the early childhood, and then leading into the latter years of the Messiah and the passion and resurrection and ascension.
That's very cool, man. I on our weekly virtual house church, Juan Carlos is one of my co-hosts, and he's been tracking down Mary was cousins with Elizabeth, who her husband was the high priest, legitimate high priest.
Yeah, Zacharias,
Yeah, he was a legitimate high priest, which means they're of the line of Levi. And so the fact that Mary was related to Elizabeth shows that Yeshua also had Levitical blood. And even though he's of the tribe of Judah, he's also got some Levite in him, which I thought was really amazing. Now, of course, the priesthood traces through the father, and of course, Joseph wasn't really his father. Yahuwah was his father, but Yahuwah is the ultimate priest. But just that he's of the line of Judah, but also had some Levite makes him all the more the Melchizedek.
Oh yes, without a doubt. Yeah, there's a manuscript which it is also in the introduction. We released it with the book that my son did on the Word of the Lord. The comparative analysis of the hidden memra, which shows all the Targum. I sent you the PDF, but we're also going to send you the the book, the print form of that. But anyways, in that I spoke about and released a manuscript called On the Priesthood of Jesus Christ. And it speaks about and brings forth, and they are looking at and examining Mary and the Immaculate Conception. And the reason they are doing so is because they are wanting to anoint Yeshua as a priest in the line of these particular priests. And he was the last one to be anointed. But anyways, his bloodline, his lineage was confirmed. And it was affirmed that not only was Mary the mother, but that, God the Father, Yahuwah, was his supernatural father because he was immaculately conceived. And Mary was still a virgin at the time that they did the interview process with her. And in that, it also declares that her bloodline, as well, as Joseph's, that not only were the stem of Jesse, being the, as far as the royal bloodline of David, but also that she was of the Aaronic priesthood, that particular Levite bloodline as well. And so, yes, Yeshua was king and priest and prophet. So, without a doubt.
Yeah, very cool. This past weekend, we did the what was it? Torah portion week number. I think it was Shemini. Shemini, which is Leviticus 9, I think. It's taking forever for some reason to load here. Leviticus chapter 9 through 11. And when we were doing that, it was talking about sanctifying and forgiveness. And, oh gosh, I can't find it. Never able to find it quickly when I need to. But anyway, it was in it said the glory of the Lord came down or something, and I was like, I wonder what the Targum had to say on that. So we looked it up, and sure enough, it said that it was the word of the Lord that came and grants forgiveness and atonement for sins. I was like, wow. I mean, talk about a slam dunk right there. I mean,
right.
See if I can find it exactly, but 5, 6. Anyway, it's been pretty fascinating to look into this stuff.
That's cool. So you guys are starting to incorporate the Targum into your virtual house church studies?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Jake Grant was.
Yeah.
He's been the one that's been really looking into it, and so he's been bringing stuff out, and it's because of that I was like, if he wasn't there this past weekend for or the show that we did, he had some stuff going on with his family, I guess, but so I was like, I just wonder,
Right. Yeah.
It's because of some of the other stuff that we've been doing.
That's great. That's really great, because I think it adds so much more detail and interesting stuff that, again, because the word of the Lord has been removed, and I think intentionally, purposely, from the Pentateuch so many times. You can't accidentally remove the word of the Lord 200 times from just the first 5 books of Moshe without there being some kind of weird something going on. And so adding all that back in and reading it in that context, it's absolutely mind-blowing. And for those that are believers, it's the most incredible study you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you're saying memra, that's where the word of the Lord, the word is.
Yes,
capital.
That's what. Memra is the word. Yeah.
Because the regular word is something like debar, something like that. For that's the, like, hey, I got a word for you. If I was just giving you the generic word for word in Hebrew, it's different. And I noticed Targum that it would differentiate between the two. Whenever it was using the memra, it would be the capital W, and otherwise the lowercase w.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and that distinction lets you know that it's referring to Christ, and to the Son of God, and that's an incredible study in and of itself.
That's fascinating. I'm on the Targum.info website, and it doesn't have chapter 9.
Really?
Yeah, it says chapter 6 through 9, but it only goes to 8. It's missing 9, and then when you click on the next one, which is, that's weird. It says
that is really awkward.
It's supposed to be 10 through 13, and it starts at 12. But it was there this weekend because I showed it on the air, and of course now,
how awkward.
That is really bizarre. It's like it's missing the whole chapter.
Yeah.
Actually, it looks like it's missing a couple of chapters. Huh. Weird. Oh, well. Yes, so I finished the edit of Seed, and I was like, well, because it's only 8 minutes long, I'm like, I don't want to just release it because, man, it's been 11 years in the making.
Right.
So this past week, I just decided, what, I'm gonna tell the story from concept to completion. And even if no one else watches it, it means something to me to go back and retrace the steps. And it's been a lot of fun, man. I've been digging through all kinds of archives of, JPEGs and MP4 files and stuff that I found, and just reliving so much of it. And I'm like, oh man, I forgot all about that. Oh wow, that was cool. And just I was reminded of the trip that we went to, the first time I went to Cape Town and Pretoria, South Africa, which was in 2012. And just what a sweet kiss from the Father that whole trip was, because I left my job. It's been 11 years ago this week. April 1st of 2010 is when I left my full-time job. And from April 1st, 2010 till we went on that trip, and that was in November of 2012. I mean, that was rough. we were living on a wing and a prayer from miracle to miracle that entire 2 years. And I had just published Babylon Rising I was like at the first quarter of 2012, I think. And in the book, in the introduction, I think it was in the preface or introduction, somewhere in there, I said, yeah, if you'd like me to come and present on this material, here's my information. And I don't charge to speak or anything. Just, fly my wife and I there and put us in a hotel, and I'll be happy to do it. And the first person who responded to that was a guy named Albert Moffat out in Pretoria, South Africa. So
sweet.
What a journey. It was so weird because I started on Blog Talk Radio before I came here to TFR. And I'm a late nighter, so the best time for me to do a show was at night. So this has pretty much always been my time slot, right around 10 to 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. ish. Was even when I was doing it on Blog Talk. And because of that, it's nighttime here, and it's a weekday at that, but it's daytime on the other side of the world. So
right. They really appreciated it.
Yeah, for some of these people, I was like their morning cup of tea or whatever, their fringe radio guy or whatever. So simply because of my time slot, I ended up, even before developing much of an audience here in the States, I developed a pretty big audience in that side of the world, in South Africa and Australia and New Zealand. And so he offered to fly us out there. And we're so paranoid because, Babylon Rising, I deal with government conspiracies and stuff like that, And she was like, well, do you know these people? I'm like, no, I never heard of them. She's like, well, we could trust them because, we're hyper conspiratorial and, really freaking out. And I'm like, honey, I don't know. I'm just taking out faith, because I get the email and I show her. I said, hey, check this out. This guy in South Africa wants me to come speak there, because he said, would you do a conference? I'm like, yeah, sure. Who's going to be there? And he says, no, just you. I'm like, what? And so she was, oh, no, we go as a package deal. I'm like, I know that. So I wrote back and said, this is the requirements. And, a couple days later, we got like 10 days or 2 weeks, something like that. And Delta Airlines tickets showed up in my inbox,
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're going. So with no idea who we're going to meet, what was going to happen, nothing, and this big, I think it was like a Escalade or something like that, just like black SUV kind of thing, shows up and with tinted windows, and we're like, oh boy, here we go. I'm thinking we're going to be disappeared. The
Men in Black, right?
and he was huge. He gosh, he had to be 7 feet tall or more. And his wife too. They're both very tall people. So these two huge people get out of the car. And we're like, they're like, oh, and he gives a big hug and everything. I'm like, wow, okay. So they take us to their beautiful estate. You practically needed like a retina scan to get in. It seemed like, it was a gated community kind of deal. And this nice estate house. And they gave us, they had a guest room suite with maid service and everything. Like we walked in, just gorgeous. And we opened the curtains to look out on the porch, and there's like, lions and stuff walking around out in the savannah. Oh,
wow.
We're like, we're both looking at each other like, wow, is this really happening? And what was crazy was because, I left the ministry in April of 2010. So this is November of 2012. And we flew from Dallas to Atlanta for the overseas hop. And while we were in Atlanta, the guy who was the vice president of the ministry that we were both a part of was there getting ready to go on a mission trip. So he had also flown from Dallas to Atlanta. We just happened to bump into each other. And he's like, cool. Yes, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, yeah, I told him. And I said, well, we're going to South Africa. He goes, oh, he says, no pressure or anything. And he pulls out this business card. He said, I've got one of my major donors loves this certain kind of wine that you can only get, like, I guess in Cape Town or someplace. And he's like, no pressure, but if you happen to see it, I'll give you some money for it. But, would you pick up a bottle that I could give as a gift to my donor? And I'm like, yeah, I can't promise anything, but, if I find it, sure. So he gives me this card, and it said I'll probably butcher this, but it said Boyten Verwachten, I think was, I'd say it was just one word across the card. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but so we get there, and they host us. They had a venue for me to speak at, and I spoke for like 10 hours in Pretoria. And then my friend Mornay Tennyson lived in Cape Town, and I only knew him on Facebook. I didn't really know him. We just were acquaintances on Facebook. He found out I was in Pretoria, and he says, "Oh, could you come down to Cape Town?" And I had no idea how far away it was. And so I asked our hosts, and Albert's like, "Yeah, my wife and I, we love it down there. Yeah, we'll all go." So they booked a flight for the four of us to go down to Cape Town, and Mornay managed to get a church set up for me to speak at. I think I spoke for like 5 hours there or something, and
wow,
it was incredible. And this guy that ran a hostel in Hollywood. In 1999, I was writing a script about cloning Jesus from the Shroud of Turin, and I was pitching it. I was going to pitch festivals to try to get a studio to buy it. And I was staying for like $15 a night at this hostel that was by like the Orange Bowl. And it was a South African dude that was the owner of it. And so I'd spend all day beating the streets trying to sell the script. And at night I'd come back and talk to Petri, was his name, talk to Petri. And we just really hit it off. He was into all the stuff I was into, and, we had a good time. So that was in 1999. So flash forward from 1999 to 2012, I just get to Cape Town. I'm about to start speaking at the podium at the church in Cape Town. Who comes walking down the aisle but Petri? Like, I'm about ready to speak. I'm like, "Petri?" He's like, "Rob Skiba." I'm like, "Oh my God, dude." I ran down. He's like, "Yeah, walking through town. I see these flyers all over the place. This guy, Rob Skiba, is going to be talking about conspiracies and stuff." And he's like, "I wonder."
Oh my gosh.
Like, I wonder if it's the same guy. Sure enough, we had this like amazing reunion. So I'm finding like all these pictures, this week as I'm going. And
nice.
Just bringing it all back to me. And I just sat here and started crying. I'm like, "Wow, Father, you're just so amazing."
What a journey.
And the line of that was when we finally did get to a winery. I asked Albert what the card meant, what the word was, and he goes, "Oh, that's I think it was Dutch or something." He goes, "That's the word for the word means beyond expectations," and it was like that's what Yahuwah was. He was giving us that in it before he's like, this trip is going to be way beyond your expectations. And sure enough, it was. And I found a clip of Mornay just as we were getting ready to leave Cape Town. And he said, "I don't think it's an accident that you came here and that you spoke at both Pretoria and Cape Town. Our government is split, and they do like they run half the country from Pretoria and for half the year or something like that, and the other half from Cape Town." He says, "And you ministered to both of our, basically like their equivalent of Washington, D.C. He's like both of our capitals." And he goes, "I can't help but believing that you planted a seed here that's going to grow." And I found him saying that. We were just sitting like in the lobby. I think it was either at the airport or someplace, and he was saying this. And then here it is. I just completed the video, and it was because of Mornay that I got the video done, because we did this production in Cape Town. So 7 years ago to the day on it was Facebook in 2019, posted a picture. It says, "This time 7 years ago, you posted this picture." It was a picture of me and Mornay on Table Mountain. And it was like 7 years to the day. Facebook said, "Hey, remember this guy?" And that's when we made the contract to get started on it again. So
Sweet.
Just crazy cool.
Planting the seed.
So cool.
So before I forget, I was thinking also that I think it would be a great way for people to support your project if you decide to make like some limited edition NFTs of the seed project.
Yeah, you were telling me that last week. I don't. What is an NFT anyway? What is that?
NFT means non-fungible token, and what you can do and what people have been doing are they're taking images, pictures, and they put it to the blockchain, which creates a ongoing record, like of every Bitcoin that ever sells. You can create limited edition prints of a particular, like images. It could be images of your graphic novel, or even yourself and your friends and the coming together of the seed project. Whatever. You can do artwork or images, and you create this NFT on the blockchain, and then you put it up on what's called OpenSea, which now has all this digital art, and people are literally paying incredible amounts of Ethereum to purchase and have ownership of these NFTs. And every time the NFT gets sold or transferred, the original owner gets a portion of that transaction. And so all through the life of your NFTs, you, as they, transact and sell or whatever, you will continually get profits from that. And you can sell them as, however much. There's been a lot of people that have supported you just in giving you, them, whether it's Bitcoin or whatever. This would be a way for them to also support your project and also own something that is unique to the seed project and to what you're doing. And so I can explain more,
do you know how to create one? Like how you go?
Yeah, I know how to do it. Yeah.
Oh, wow, dude. Are you making some for any of your stuff?
We actually, we want to at some point expand that, and I want to actually put a lot of focus there. But as of right now, we're only doing my my daughter-in-law. Her father is a photographer, and he does incredible work. He's the one that I use all the images for the calendar, and so we're doing some of his work, and then we also want to do some digital art. And so this is something I've learned to do, but we haven't, really started to explore that aspect. But NFTs is something that is huge. I mean, there's millions of dollars going into people purchasing, and this particular being able to put art on the blockchain and sell it in this manner is exploding. I mean, there's literal businesses and all kind of different tokens that are now coming out. You know how they have the tops with the baseball cards and all that?
Yeah.
All that is moving to non-fungible tokens as well. They just had recently an IDO, initial public offering of what's called Pokemon, which is on the Polkadot blockchain. It's like Pokemon, but it's different. And this has been one of the huge, biggest coin releases. People have spent millions of dollars on these and are getting these first editions because they know they're going to be worth so much money. And right now, people are opening up these packs because the first edition packs are available until the 15th of March. And some of the, like somebody opened something called a Bitcoin Unidragon or Dragon, and they sold it for 75 Ethereum to some guy that was a big time Fortnite player on YouTube, and he paid 75 ETH, which is like $150,000 or something.
Wow, dude.
And this guy opened it from a $30 pack.
We definitely gotta talk. Once I get this off my plate, I'll have a lot more time because the project's done. Well, not completely done. They're still doing what they call Adobe Atmos mix. That's most of the people who are going to watch this don't have Atmos equipped systems, so they're just going to be listening to it in stereo. But the Atmos mix is for like a movie theater. So you have front, left, right, and rear, and up, down. So like when the planes come over, it'll sound like they're coming over your head instead of just going from left to right.
Right.
So they're working on the Atmos mix, but I have the stereo mix done. So once I get this, I'm not sure if I can get it done tomorrow. I might do like a premiere, maybe Sunday or something. We'll see. I want to do something kind of big for this launch because it's been such a long time coming. But then afterwards, we definitely need to talk because this is.
Maybe you should incorporate even some limited edition, like even if you were to just have 1,000 copies released of the cover of your seed graphic novel. I mean, that would be something to support the project, and it would be limited, only 1,000 editions. You could put it on the blockchain, people could go and bid on it, and they would own a unique piece of the seed project and have a way to support you in your work.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
With commerce being monopolized by major corporations, we feel a responsibility to return to handmade goods and to support individuals in the community. Sacred Word Publishing wants to encourage truth seekers to support each other, and one of the best ways we can do that is through offering this centralized marketplace where everyone's homemade products can be easily accessed by our fellow members in the body of Christ. Would you be interested in offering your handcrafted items in our store? Email us at sacredwordpublishingllc@gmail.com. Support the truth-seeking community by going to www.swpmarket.com. Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity, but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures. Everyday questions.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses?
Which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible.
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Check out swpcalendar.com to see when to join us next for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba, and I'm joined with my co-host, Zen Garcia. And we just kind of chit-chatted for the first half. Now we might as well jump in here. I figured out there was an issue on the Targum website where they divided everything up, I think, into the Torah portions. So you got Leviticus 1 through 6, 6 through 9, and 10, 11, but it didn't work out that way when you click on the links. So I actually had to see what was going on in the URL and type in 10-11 in there because it was missing those chapters. And it actually, 10-11 actually covered chapter 9. It's kind of weird the way they have it. But anyway, they have it under the title Shemini. And then when I did a keyword search for word, it says, let's see, it may be that the word of the Lord hath no pleasure in the work of my hands. Then Moshe and Aaron went into the tabernacle of ordinance and prayed for the people of the house of Israel, and came forth and blessed the people and said, may the word of the Lord receive your oblations with favor and remit and forgive your sins. Wow.
Yes, amen.
That's pretty hardcore.
Yes. Yeah, and it's amazing when you review the Targum, and I've had a lot of people comment on, like on Amazon in review about how they're incorporating the Targum into their studies every month and going through different Torah portion, and how it's greatly blessed their lives. And I'm really excited that people are starting to open themselves up to the study of it and embracing the revelations that are contained within it, because I think it, again, helps you to understand so much that remains amiss with just the regular English translations, the modern English translations.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a result of doing this show with you,
right?
Okay. Every time I see something, my preferred study Bible is still the King James, but when it kind of just jumps out at me, or it says, the glory of the Lord came down, or what, I'm like, I wonder,
right.
Whenever I see something like that, I'm like, I'm gonna go check it out. And sure enough, the Targum so far it has not disappointed. Whenever I was just curious to see if this got some kind of elaboration going on there. And last week, wow, that the whole thing we did with Job was still really, and quite a few people responded saying that they had some of the similar issues that I could, confess that I struggled with, especially with Job, and so that was really cool, man.
I think a lot of people had similar issues, because I was the same way before I read the Testament of Job and understood the story in more elaborate context. And I felt relief, actually, to have read that study and to be able to see that story in that light. Yeah,
definitely. So at the end of your show last week, I was making a mad dash to try to finish reading, and I only got like 4 or 5 verses left to go, I think, something like that. I was trying to finish Jubilees chapter 30. Right. So I can go ahead and wrap that up here. I'll back up just a little bit here.
All right.
Let's see. Okay, I'll just start at verse 17. I think it was somewhere in this page before I had to stop. Okay, for this reason I have commanded thee, saying, testify this testimony to Israel. See how the Shechemites fared and their sons, how they were delivered into the hands of 2 sons of Jacob, and they slew them under tortures, and it was reckoned unto them for righteousness, and it is written down to them for righteousness. And the seed of Levi was chosen for the priesthood, and to be Levites, that they might minister before the Lord as we continually. And the we here is that's angels, right? Because this is Jubilees is written by
the angels, or given to Moshe.
For that they might minister before the Lord as we continually, and that what was that? Something just went wonky over here. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You know what? I think I need to. Man, I'm afraid I have a VPN, and sometimes OBS doesn't like it. I'll probably wait till the next because I think if I disconnect that might cause a problem. And I'll have to fix it if that happens during the break. All right, well, see what happens. And the seed of Levi was chosen for the priesthood to be Levites, that they might minister before the Lord as we continually, and that Levi and his sons may be blessed forever. For he was zealous to execute judgment and vengeance on all those who arose against Israel. And so they inscribe as a testimony in his favor on the heavenly tablets, blessing and righteousness before the God of all. And we remember the righteousness which the man fulfilled during his life at all periods of the year, until 1,000 generations they will record it. And it will come to him and to his descendants after him. And he has been recorded on the heavenly tablets as a friend and a righteous man. All this account I have written for thee, and have commanded thee to say to the children of Israel that they should not commit sin, nor transgress the ordinances, nor break the covenant which has been ordained for them, but that they should fulfill it and be recorded as friends. But if they transgress and work uncleanness in every way, they will be recorded on the heavenly tablets as adversaries, and they will be destroyed out of the book of life, and they will be recorded in the book of those who will be destroyed, and with those who will be rooted out of the earth. And on the day when the sons of Jacob slew Shechem, a writing was recorded in their favor in heaven, that they had executed righteousness and uprightness and vengeance on the sinners, and it was written for a blessing. And they brought Dinah, their sister, out of the house of Shechem, and they took captive everything that was in Shechem, their sheep and their oxen and their asses and all their wealth and all their flocks, and brought them all to Jacob their father. And he reproached them because they had put the city to the sword, for he feared those that dwelt in the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And the dread of the Lord was upon all the cities which were round about Shechem, and they did not rise to pursue after the sons of Jacob, for terror had fallen upon them. That's an interesting twist. You know, if they're among the Canaanites, you know, they would have, especially if they had any knowledge that Jacob was grandson to Abraham, because they knew what Abraham had done to giants before.
Right.
You know, and so Abraham, the house of Abraham, already had great respect, even among the Amorites. And so, you know, here you have the descendants now of Abraham's grandson wiping out the town of Shechem. So, you know, perhaps right. Shechem had some kind of notability too. And, you know, Jacob's worry, he's like, oh, now look what you guys did. Now everybody's going to, you know, come after me. But and the byproduct instead was, okay, don't mess with that family.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think you had covered pretty much everything already from Targums and Legend of the Jews and all that for Genesis 34, if memory serves. I think you already covered all that, right?
I believe so. Let me check. Yeah, I think so. I think we can move on with
chapter 35.
Jasher. Yeah, and Jasher. Yeah, chapter 35. Whatever else you need to cover.
Yeah, I think last week I got us pretty sure we got caught up on Joshua last week. So I'll go to King James chapter 35, Genesis.
Right.
I'll read that, and then you can do the Targums and anything else.
All right, yeah. Sounds good.
And God said unto Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. Then Jacob said unto his household and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. And let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which is by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. So Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And they built there an altar, and called the place El Bethel, because there God appeared unto him, and he fled from the face of his brother. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried between Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Allon Bachuth. And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padan Aram, and blessed him. And God said unto him, thy name is Jacob, thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. And God said unto him, I am God Almighty, be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. In the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed after thee will I give the land. And God went up from him in the place where he talked with him. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon. And Jacob called the name of the place where God spake with him Bethel. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was put a little way to come to Ephrath, and Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar upon her grave, that is a pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. And Israel journeyed and spread his tent beyond the tower of Edar. And it came to pass, when Israel dwelt in the land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon and Levi, and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Padan Aram. And Jacob came unto Isaac his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. And Isaac gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people, being old and full of days. And his son Esau and Jacob buried him. Yeah, I forgot Isaac was still around. Oh.
All right, let me
I thought you were.
Go back. I was following along in the Targum version, but all right, chapter 35, which there's some interesting additions to this I think you'll like. And the Lord said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel. Let me share my screen for those of your audience. And the Lord said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto Elohah, who revealed himself to thee in thy flight from before Esau thy brother. And Jacob said to the men of his house, and to all who were with him, Put away the idols of the peoples which are among you, which you took from the temple of Shechem, and purify you from the uncleanness of the slain whom you have, and change your raiment. And we will arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto Elohah, who heard my prayer and in the day when I was afflicted, and whose word was my helper in the way that I went. And they delivered into Jacob's hand all the idols of the people which were in their hands, which they had taken from the temple of Shechem, and the jewels that had been in the ears of the inhabitants of the city of Shechem, in which was portrayed the likeness of their images. And Jacob hid them under the terebinth that was near to the city of Shechem. And they journeyed from thence, offering praise and prayer before the Lord. And there was a tremor from before the Lord upon the people of the cities round about them, and they pursued not after the sons of Jacob. And Jacob came to Luz in the land of Canaan, which is Bethel, he and all the people who were with him. And he builded there an altar, and named that place to God, who made his Shekinah to dwell in Bethel, because there had been revealed to him the angels of the Lord in his flight from before Esau his brother. And Deborah, the nurse of Rebekah, died and was buried below Bethel in the field of the plain. And there it was told Jacob concerning the death of Rebekah his mother, and he called the name of it the other weeping. And the Lord revealed himself to Jacob again on his return from Padan Aram. And the Lord blessed him by the name of his word after the death of his mother. And the Lord said to him, Heretofore was thy name Jacob. Thy name shall be no more called Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And the Lord said to him, I am El Shaddai. Spread forth and multiply, a holy people, and a congregation of prophets and priests shall be from thy sons, whom thou hast begotten. And 2 kings shall yet from thee go forth. And the land which I gave to Abraham and to Isaac will I give unto thee, and to thy son after thee will I give the land, Jerusalem. And Deborah, the nurse of Rebekah, died and was buried below Bethel under an oak. And he called the name of it the Oak of Weeping. The God of eternity, whose name be blessed forever and ever, hath taught us precepts which are beautiful, and statutes that are comely. He hath taught us the blessing of matrimony from Adam and his bride, as the scripture expoundeth. And the word of the Lord blessed them, and the word of the Lord said to them, Be strong and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. He hath taught us to visit the afflicted from our father Abraham, the righteous, when he revealed himself to him in the plain of vision, and gave him the precept of circumcision, and made him to sit in the door of his tent in the heat of the day, as the scripture expoundeth and saith. And the word of the Lord revealed himself to him in the plain of vision. And again he hath taught us to bless those who mourn from our father Jacob the righteous. For he revealed himself to him on his coming from Padan of Aram, when the way of the world had happened to Deborah, the nurse of Rebekah his mother, and Rahel died by him in the way. And Jacob our father sat weeping and bewailing her, and mourning and crying. Then wast thou, O Lord of all worlds, in the perfection of thy free mercies, revealed to him, and didst comfort him, and blessing the mourners didst bless him concerning his mother, even as the scripture expoundeth and saith, The word of the Lord revealed himself unto Jacob the second time on his coming from Padan Aram, and blessed him. And the Shekinah of the Lord ascended from him in the place where he had spoken with him, and Jacob erected there a pillar of stone in the place where he had spoken with him, a pillar of stone, and he outpoured upon it a libation of wine and a libation of water, because thus it was to be done at the feast of the tabernacles. And he poured oil of olives thereupon. And Jacob called the name of the place where the Lord had spoken with him, Bethel. And they proceeded from Bethel, and there was yet much space of provision. And in the coming to Ephrath, and Rahel travaileth, and had hard labor in her birth. And it was in the hardness of her travail that the midwife said to her, Fear not, for this also is to thee a male child. And it was in the going forth of her soul, for death came upon her, that she called his name the son of my woe. But his father called him Benjamin. Jerusalem. And there was a space as much ground to come up unto Ephrath, and Rahel travaileth, and had hard labor in her birth. But his father called him in the language of the sanctuary, Benjamin. And Rahel died, and was buried in the way of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob erected a pillar over the house of burying, which is the pillar of the tomb of Rahel unto this day. And Jacob proceeded and spread his tent beyond the tower of Eder, the place from whence it is to be. The king Mashiach will be revealed at the end of the days. And it was while Israel dwelt in this land that Reuben went and confounded the bed of Bilhah, the concubine of his father, which had been ordained along with the bed of Leah his mother. And this is reputed with regard to him, as if he had lain with her. And Israel heard it, and it afflicted him. And he said, Alas, that one should have come forth from me, so profane, even as Ishmael came forth from Abraham, and Esau from my father. The Spirit of holiness answered and thus spake to him, Fear not, for all are righteous, and none of them is profane. So after Benjamin was born, the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, the firstborn of Jacob, Reuben, and Shimeon, and Levi, and Jehudah, and Issachar, and Zabulon. The sons of Rahel, Joseph, and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, the handmaid of Rahel, Dan, and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, the handmaid of Leah, Gad, and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, who were born to him in Padan Aram. And Jacob came to Isaac his father at Mamre, the city of Arba, which is Hebron, for there Abraham and Isaac had dwelt, and the days of Isaac were 180 years. And Isaac expired and died and was gathered to his people, old and full of days. And Esau and Jacob, his sons, buried him.
And that's the end of that.
Yep.
10, 11, 12. Yeah, I always wondered if there's any significance to the fact that the 12 tribes came from these 4 women, and who represents what, in like an end times context. Like, there's been lots of interesting speculation about the tribe of Dan in the last and things like that. Have you ever spent any time looking into that sort of thing?
No, but I bet that would be a really incredible study. I have not, and I really should do more of that kind of thing, but I spend more of my time just reading and the ancient manuscripts, and in that way I learn and discover a lot of what I don't know about, the particulars of different texts, but that's a study that I haven't seen, like in the Legends of the Jews or the Perkdi Rabbi Eleazar, but that's the way I mostly do, as far as learning about the stories and the parallel accounts, is just by reading all the different ancient manuscripts, which kind of overlap and tell the same story, just in different content and context.
Yeah, I mean, Leah has 6 of them.
Right.
6, 12. And, all the rest only have 2 each.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of any offspring that came from Reuben laying with Bilhah? I can't.
No. The only thing that, as far as the Reuben laying with Bilhah, that I see is in the context of the story of Ham.
Mm-hmm.
With his mother, but no, not that I can recall. But it would be interesting to see, like in the testaments of the 12 patriarchs, if there's any such mention, because Reuben does show how deeply that story and his doing that affected him, because Bilhah was drunk and passed out and laid out in her tent, and he went in and performed this act with her, and she never even awoke or knew what was going on. But then when the whole story as far as the trial against Tamar came forth, and Judah was trying to have her burnt to death because she was pregnant, and he had kept her for his son, supposedly, but never fulfilled that promise to her, and then come to find out that he was the father of her child because she brought forth the mantle. Anyways, it came up in that trial, and Reuben confessed.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
With commerce being monopolized by major corporations, we feel a responsibility to return to handmade goods and to support individuals in the community. Sacred Word Publishing wants to encourage truth seekers to support each other, and one of the best ways we can do that is through offering this centralized marketplace where everyone's homemade products can be easily accessed by our fellow members in the body of Christ. Would you be interested in offering your handcrafted items in our store? Email us at sacredwordpublishingllc@gmail.com. Support the truth-seeking community by going to www.swpmarket.com. Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures.
We're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba, and I'm joined once again by Zen Garcia. We're in the second half of the broadcast here. And just real quick, Zen, you probably would know this. There's a discussion in the chat room. People are wondering what is the mark of Cain. I seem to remember reading something somewhere that at least part of his issue was that his hands started shaking. I'm not for sure if you're familiar with that or anything else, or what your take on it is.
Yeah, there are, according to different stories and different manuscripts, but I did an entire show on this with David Carrico, and people can see, this was way back before they banned me, but
yeah,
you can find that.
I had this show right before they banned me.
Yeah, but anyways, in that show, I talked about how in the book of Joshua, the mark of Cain is that he had a horn that he was said to possess like a horn, like a rhinoceros. In a different story, the mark of Cain was said to be an X, some kind of awkward, almost like a hooked X, like a Templar kind of hooked X, which is really strange. But and in the Sumerian tradition, the mark of Cain was that his children were not able to grow facial hair. And it's awkward that in South America, the city called Tenochtitlan, which is one of those huge ruins there, it means the city of Enoch, which Enoch was the firstborn of Cain. And the South American Indians are not able to grow facial hair. Yeah. And so that's, take it for whatever it is. And so these different stories, and it depends on what you read. But in that show, I share all of the sources which actually, talk about that and allude to the mark of Cain being those things that I just cited. So,
are you familiar with what text it is, or about the story about his hands shaking?
There is several stories that speak about his having tremors. Yeah. And I think the Legends of the Jews is one of those, and perhaps even in the Perkdi Rabbi Eleazar. Also, the Assator speaks about the book of the secret book of Moses. The Assator, it's a Sumerian text. It also speaks about Cain and the mark, and but yeah, the Legends of the Jews covers it in great detail as well.
Yeah, interesting. Doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, but I just saw during the break.
It is an interesting study, though.
Yeah. Okay. Unless you want to read from if there's anything in the Legends of the Jews on this chapter.
Let's see.
You can look at that. Read Joshua 34 if you want to.
Okay, sounds good.
Look that over. Okay. Joshua 34. And the number of all the males that were circumcised were 645 men. Wow, that was quite a party. And 246 children. Whoa, man. That's a lot of people. But Shiddekem, son of Bered, the father of Hamor, that's a lot of foreskin laying around there.
Right.
Jeez. The father of Hamor and his 6 brothers would not listen unto Shechem and his father Hamor, and they would not be circumcised, for the proposal of the sons of Jacob was loathsome in their sight, and their anger was greatly roused at this, that the people of the city had not hearkened to them. And in the evening of the second day, they found 8 small children who had not been circumcised, for the mothers had concealed them from Shechem and his father Hamor, and from the men of the city. And Shechem and his father Hamor sent to have them brought before them to be circumcised, when Shiddekem and his 6 brothers sprang at them with their swords and sought to slay them. And they sought to slay also Shechem and his father Hamor, and they sought to slay Dinah with them on account of this matter. And they said unto them, What is this thing that you have done? Are there no women amongst the daughters of your brethren, the Canaanites, that you wish to take unto yourselves daughters of the Hebrews, whom you knew not before, and will do this act with your fathers, which your fathers never commanded you? Do you imagine that you will succeed through this act which you have done? And what will you answer in this affair to your brethren, the Canaanites, who will come tomorrow and ask you concerning this thing? And if your act shall not appear just and good in their sight, what will you do for your lives, and for me, and me for our lives, and you're not having hearkened to our voices? And the inhabitants of the land and all your brethren, the children of Ham, shall hear of your act, saying, On account of a Hebrew woman did Shechem and Hamor his father and all the inhabitants of their city do that with which they had been unacquainted, and which their ancestors never commanded them, when will you fly, or where conceal your shame all your days before your brethren, the inhabitants of the land of Canaan? Now therefore, we cannot bear up against this thing which you have done, neither can we be burdened with this yoke upon us, which our ancestors did not command us. Behold, tomorrow we will go and assemble all our brethren, the Canaanitish brethren, who dwell in the land, and we will all come and smite you and all those who trust in you, that there shall not be a remnant left from you or them. And when Hamor and his son Shechem and all the people of the city heard the words of Shittim and his brothers, they were terribly afraid of their lives at their words, and they repented of what they had done. And Shechem and his father Hamor answered their father Shittim and his brethren, and they said unto them, all the words which you spoke unto us are true. Now do you not say, nor imagine in your hearts, that on account of the love of the Hebrews we did this thing that our ancestors did not command us? But because we saw that it was not their intention and desire to accede to our wishes concerning their daughter as to our taking her, except on this condition. So we hearkened to their voices and did this act which you saw in order to obtain our desire from them. And when we shall have obtained our request from them, we will then return to them and do unto them that which you say unto us. We beseech you then to wait and tarry until our flesh shall be healed, and we again become strong, and we will then go together against them and do unto them that which is in your hearts and in ours. And Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, heard all these words which Shittim and his brothers had spoken, and that Hamor and his son Shechem and all the people of the land had answered them. And she hastened and sent one of her maidens that her father had sent to take care of her in the house of Shechem to Jacob, her father, and to her brethren, saying, thus did Shittim and his brothers advise concerning you, and thus did Hamor and Shechem and the people of the city answer them. And when Jacob heard these words, he was filled with wrath, and he was indignant at them, and his anger was kindled against them. And Simeon and Levi swore and said, as the Lord liveth, the God of the whole earth, by this time tomorrow there shall not be a remnant left in the whole city. And 20 young men had concealed themselves, who were not circumcised, and these young men fought against Simeon and Levi, and Simeon and Levi killed 18 of them, and 2 fled from them and escaped to some lime pits that were in the city. And Simeon and Levi sought for them, but could not find them. And Simeon and Levi continued to go about in the city, and they killed all the people of the city at the edge of the sword, and they left none remaining. And there was a great consternation in the midst of the city, and the cry of the people of the city ascended to heaven, and all the women and children cried aloud. And Simeon and Levi slew all the city, and they left not a male remaining in the whole city. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son at the edge of the sword, and they brought away Dinah from the house of Shechem, and they went from there. And the sons of Jacob went and returned, and came upon the slain, and spoiled all their property, which was in the city and the field. And whilst they were taking the spoil, 300 men stood up and threw dust at them, and struck them with stones, when Simeon turned to them, and he slew them all with the edge of the sword. And Simeon turned before Levi, and came into the city. And they took away their sheep and their oxen and their cattle, and also the remainder of the women and little ones. And they led all these away, and they opened the gate and went out and came unto their father Jacob with vigor. And when Jacob saw all that they had done to the city, and saw the spoil that they took from them, Jacob was very angry at them. And Jacob said unto them, what is this that you have done to me? Behold, I obtained rest amongst the Canaanitish inhabitants of the land, and none of them meddled with me. And now you have done to make me obnoxious to the inhabitants of the land amongst the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I am but of a small number, and they will all assemble against me and slay me when they hear of your work with their brethren, and I and my household will be destroyed. And Simeon and Levi and all their brothers with them answered their father Jacob, and said unto him, behold, we live in the land, and shall Shechem do this to our sister? Why art thou silent at all that Shechem has done? And shall he deal with our sister as with a harlot in the streets? And the number of women whom Simeon and Levi took captives from the city of Shechem, whom they did not slay, was 85, who had not known man. And amongst them was a young damsel of beautiful appearance and well favored, whose name was Buna, and Simeon took her to wife. And the number of the males which they took captives and did not slay was 47 men, and the rest they slew. And all the young men and women that Simeon and Levi had taken captives from the city of Shechem were servants to the sons of Jacob and to their children after them, until the day of the sons of Jacob going forth from the land of Egypt. And when Simeon and Levi had gone forth from the city, the two young women that were left, who had concealed themselves in the city and did not die amongst the people of the city, rose up, and these young men went into the city and walked about in it, and found the city desolate without man, and only women weeping. And these young men cried out and said, Behold, this is the evil which the sons of Jacob the Hebrew did to this city, and their having this day destroyed one of the Canaanite cities, and were not afraid of their lives of all the land of Canaan. And these men left the city and went to the city of Tapnach, and they came there and told the inhabitants of Tapnach all that had befallen them, and all that the sons of Jacob had done to the city of Shechem. And the information reached Jashub, king of Tapnach, and he sent men to the city of Shechem to see those young men. For the king did not believe them in this account, saying, How could two men lay waste such a large town as Shechem? And the messengers of Jashub came back and told him, saying, We came unto the city, and it is destroyed. There is not a man there, only weeping women, neither is any flock or cattle there, for all that was in the city the sons of Jacob took away. And Jashub wondered at this, saying, How could two men do this thing, to destroy so much city, and not one man able to stand against them? For the like has not been from the days of Nimrod, and not even from the remotest time has the like taken place. And Jashub, king of Tapnach, said to his people, Be courageous, and we will go and fight against these Hebrews, and do unto them as they did unto the city, and we will avenge the cause of the people of the city. And Jashub, king of Tapnach, consulted with his counselors about this matter, and his advisors said unto him, Alone thou wilt not prevail over the Hebrews, for they must be powerful to do this work to the whole city. If two of them laid waste the whole city, and no one stood against them, surely if thou wilt go against them, they will all rise against us and destroy us likewise. But if thou wilt send to all the kings that surround us, and let them come together, then we will go with them and fight against the sons of Jacob. Then wilt thou prevail against them. And Joshua heard the words of his counselors, and the words pleased him and his people, and he did so. And Joshua, king of Tapnach, sent to all the kings of the Amorites that surrounded Shechem and Tapnach, saying, Go up with me and assist me, and we will smite Jacob the Hebrew and all his sons, and destroy them from the earth. For this did he do to the city of Shechem, and do you know of it? And all the kings of the Amorites heard the evil that the sons of Jacob had done to the city of Shechem, and they were greatly astonished at them. And the 7 kings of the Amorites assembled with all their armies, about 10,000 men with drawn swords, and they came to fight against the sons of Jacob. And Jacob heard that the kings of the Amorites had assembled to fight against his sons, and Jacob was greatly afraid, and it distressed him. And Jacob exclaimed against Simeon and Levi, saying, What is this act that you did? Why have you injured me to bring against me all the children of Canaan to destroy me and my household? For I was at rest, even I and my household. And you have done this thing to me, and provoked the inhabitants of the land against me by your proceedings. And Judah answered his father, saying, Was it for naught my brothers Simeon and Levi killed all the inhabitants of Shechem? Surely it was because Shechem had humbled our sister, and transgressed the command of our God to Noah and his children. For Shechem took our sister away by force, and committed adultery with her. And Shechem did all this evil, and not one of the inhabitants of his city interfered with him to say, Why wilt thou do this? Surely for this my brothers went and smote the city, and the Lord delivered it into their hands, because its inhabitants had transgressed the commands of our God. Is it then for naught that they have done all this? And now why art thou afraid or distressed, and why art thou displeased at my brothers? And why is thine anger kindled against them? Surely our God, who delivered into their hand the city of Shechem and its people, will also deliver into our hands all the Canaanitish kings who are coming against us, and we will do unto them as my brothers did unto Shechem. Now be tranquil about them, and cast away thy fears, but trust in the Lord our God, and pray unto him to assist us and deliver our enemies into our hands. And Judah called to one of his father's servants, Go now and see where those kings who are coming against us are situated, and their armies. And the servant went and looked far off, and went up opposite Mount Sihon, and saw all the camps of the kings standing in the fields. And he returned to Judah and said, Behold, the kings are situated in the field with their camps, a people of exceeding numbers, like unto the sand upon the seashore. And Judah said unto Simeon and Levi, and unto all his brothers, Strengthen yourselves and be sons of valor, for the Lord our God is with us. Do not fear them. Stand forth each man girt with his weapons of war, his bow and his sword, and we will go and fight against these uncircumcised men. The Lord is our God, he will save us. And they rose up, and each girt his weapons of war, great and small, 11 sons of Jacob, and all the servants of Jacob with them. And all the servants of Isaac, who were with Isaac in Hebron, all came to them equipped in all sorts of war instruments. And the sons of Jacob and their servants, being 112 men, went towards these kings, and Jacob also went with them. And the sons of Jacob sent unto their father Isaac, the son of Abraham, to Hebron. The same is Kiriath Arba, saying, Pray, we beseech thee, for us, unto the Lord our God, to protect us from the hands of the Canaanites who are coming against us, and to deliver them into our hands. And Isaac the son of Abraham prayed unto the Lord for his sons, and he said, O Lord God, thou didst promise my father, saying, I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven. And thou didst also promise me, and establish thou thy word, now that the kings of Canaan are coming together to make war with my children, because they committed no violence. Now therefore, O Lord God, God of the whole earth, pervert, I pray thee, the counsel of these kings, that they may not fight against my sons, and impress the hearts of the kings and their people with the terror of my sons, and bring down their pride, and that they may turn away from my sons. And with thy strong hand and outstretched arm, deliver my sons and their servants from them. For power and might are in thy hands to do all this. And the sons of Jacob and their servants went toward these kings, and they trusted in the Lord their God. And whilst they were going, Jacob their father also prayed unto the Lord, and said, O Lord God, powerful and exalted God, who has reigned from days of old, from thence till now and forever. Thou art he who stirreth up wars, and causeth them to cease. In thy hand are power and might to exalt and to bring down. O may my prayer be acceptable before thee, that thou mayest turn to me with thy mercies, to impress the hearts of these kings and their people with the terror of my sons, and terrify them and their camps, and with thy great kindness deliver all those that trust in thee. For it is thou who canst bring people under us, and reduce nations under our power. I'll keep reading here till we catch up. And all the kings of the Amorites came and took their stand in the field to consult with their counselors what was to be done with the sons of Jacob. For they were still afraid of them, saying, Behold, 2 of them slew the whole of the city of Shechem. And the Lord heard the prayers of Isaac and Jacob, and he filled the hearts of all these kings' advisors with great fear and terror, that they unanimously exclaimed, Are you silly this day? Or is there no understanding in you, that you will fight with the Hebrews? And will you take a delight in our own destruction this day? Behold, 2 of them came to the city of Shechem without fear or terror, and they killed all the inhabitants of the city, and no man stood up against them. And how will you be able to fight with them all? Surely you know that their God is exceedingly fond of them, and has done mighty things for them, such as have not been done from days of old. And amongst all the gods of nations there is none can do like unto his mighty deeds. Surely he delivered their father Abraham, the Hebrew, from the hand of Nimrod, and from the hand of all his people, who had many times sought to slay him. He delivered him also from the fire in which King Nimrod had cast him. and his God delivered him from it. And who else can do the like? Surely it was Abraham who slew the 5 kings of Elam when they had touched his brother's son, who in those days dwelt in Sodom, and took his servant that was faithful in his house and a few of his men, and they pursued the kings of Elam in one night and killed them, and restored his brother's son all his property which they had taken from him. And surely you know the God of these Hebrews is much delighted with them, and they are also delighted with him, for they know that he delivered them from all their enemies. And behold, through his love toward his God, Abraham took his only and precious son and intended to bring him up as a burnt offering to his God. And had it not been for God who prevented him from doing this, he would have done it through his love to his God. And God saw all his works and swore unto him and promised him that he would deliver his sons and all his seed from every trouble that would befall them, because they had done this thing. And through his love to his God stifled his compassion for his child. And have you not heard what their God did to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to Abimelech, king of Gerar, through taking Abraham's wife, who said of her, she is my sister, lest they might slay him on account of her, and think of taking her for a wife? And God did unto them and their people all that you heard of. And behold, we ourselves saw with our own eyes that Esau, the brother of Jacob, came to him with 400 men, and with the intention of slaying him, for he called to mind that he had taken away from him his father's blessing. And he went to meet him when he came from Syria to smite the mother with the children, and who delivered him from his hands, but his God in whom he trusted. He delivered him from the hand of his brother, and also from the hands of his enemies, and surely he will again protect them. Who does not know that it was their God who inspired them with strength to do to the town of Shechem the evil which you heard of? Could it then be with their own strength that 2 men could destroy such a large city as Shechem, had it not been for their God in whom they trusted? He said and did unto them all this to slay the inhabitants of the city in their city. And can you then prevail over them who have come forth together from your city to fight with the whole of them, even if 1,000 times as many more should come to your assistance? Surely you know and understand that you do not come to fight with them, but you come to war with their God, who made choice of them, and you have therefore all come this day to be destroyed. Now therefore refrain from this evil which you are endeavoring to bring upon yourselves, and it will be better for you not to go to battle with them, although they are but few in numbers, because their God is with them. And when the kings of the Amorites heard all the words of their advisors, their hearts were filled with terror, and they were afraid of the sons of Jacob and would not fight against them. And they inclined their ears to the words of their advisors, and they listened to all their words, and the words of the counselors greatly pleased the kings, and they did so. And the kings turned and refrained from the sons of Jacob, for they durst not approach them to make war with them, for they were greatly afraid of them, and their hearts melted within them from the fear of them. For this proceeded from the Lord to them, for he heard the prayers of his servants Isaac and Jacob, for they trusted in him. And all these kings returned to their camps on that day, each to his own city, and they did not at that time fight with the sons of Jacob. And the sons of Jacob kept their station that day till evening opposite Sihon. And seeing that these kings did not come to fight against them, the sons of Jacob returned home. Ooh, finished that right before the break. Well, that puts a whole lot more spin on the story than we get from Genesis.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I just love reading all of the extra biblical manuscripts. It just brings it to greater light.
Especially if these guys were the Raphaim. If Judd Burton's right, that the Raphaim were the royalty of the Nephilim. These are giant kings.
Yeah, I finally got a chance to listen to that show. It was really good.
Yeah, that was a good show, huh?
Rephaim meaning, like a title to king and all that. That was very interesting.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
With commerce being monopolized by major corporations, we feel a responsibility to return to handmade goods and to support individuals in the community. Sacred Word Publishing wants to encourage truth seekers to support each other, and one of the best ways we can do that is through offering this centralized marketplace where everyone's homemade products can be easily accessed by our fellow members in the body of Christ. Would you be interested in offering your handcrafted items in our store? Email us at sacredwordpublishingllc@gmail.com. Support the truth-seeking community by going to www.swpmarket.com. Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures. Everyday questions arise.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses?
which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible.
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Check out swpcalendar.com to see when to join us next for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba, and we're in the final half-hour segment of the broadcast. I'm talking with Zen Garcia as we are going through our study of Genesis and looking at other texts that support the narrative. Wow, right before the break, we were talking about the Joshua account of Genesis 34. Boy, that puts a whole other spin on it. Much deeper meaning to what's going on there.
Right. And you can see that, you know, just as when they went into the land of Canaan and then they destroyed Sihon and Og, how there was a fear, you know, amongst the rest of the people, even with Rahab saying, you know, we've heard of you, and that the people were afraid. in similarity we see here with the Simon and Levi. And as you had commented previously, that the sons of Jacob were greatly respected because of their ability, and because everybody knew that God was with them, that Yahuwah had their backs, and that He would fight for them. And so,
yeah, the other thing that caught my attention was the spoils of war from Shechem, the men, women, and children that they took. It said that they were with them right through the Exodus. So that's part of the mixed rabble, then, I imagine.
Right. Yeah, I would think so. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
Did you see anything in the Legend of the Jews?
Yeah, I have this picks up the story of the two young, the two that hid from the city of Shechem into the slime pits.
Oh, cool.
And so it picks up there. This is the Legends of the Jews. When Simon and Levi had gone from the city, the two young men who had concealed themselves in the lime pits and were not slain amongst the people of the city rose up, and they found the city desolate, without a man, only weeping women. And they cried out, saying, Behold, this is the evil which the sons of Jacob did, who destroyed one of the Canaanite cities, and were not afraid of all the land of Canaan. They left the city and went to Tappuah, and told the inhabitants all that the sons of Jacob had done to the city of Shechem. Jashub, the king of Tappuah, sent to Shechem to see whether these young men told the truth, for he did not believe them, saying, How could two men destroy a large city like Shechem? The messengers of Jashub returned, and they reported, The city is destroyed. Not a man is left there, only weeping women. Neither are there flocks and cattle there, for all that was in the city was taken away by the sons of Jacob. Jashub wondered thereat, for the like had not been heard from the days of Nimrod, and not even from the remotest times, that two men should be able to destroy so large a city. And he decided to go to war against the Hebrews and avenge the cause of the people of Shechem. His counselors said to him, If two of them laid waste the whole city, surely, if thou goest against them, they all will rise up against us and destroy us. Therefore send to the king round about, that we all together fight against the sons of Jacob, and prevail against them. The 7 kings of the Amorites, when they heard the evil that the sons of Jacob had done to the city of Shechem, assembled together with all their armies 10,000 men with drawn swords, and they came to fight against the sons of Jacob. And Jacob was greatly afraid, and he said to Simon and Levi, Why have you brought such evil upon me? I was at rest, and you provoked the inhabitants of the land against me by your acts. Then Judah spoke to his father, Was it for naught that Simon and Levi killed the inhabitants of Shechem? Verily, it was because Shechem dishonored our sister, and transgressed the command of our God to Noah and his children, and not one of the inhabitants of the city interfered in the matter. Now, why art thou afraid? And why art thou displeased at my brethren? Surely our God, who delivered the city of Shechem and its people into their hand, he will also deliver into our hands all the Canaanite kings who are coming against us. Now cast away thy fears, and pray to God to assist us and deliver us. Judah then addressed his brethren, saying, The Lord our God is with us. Fear not. Then stand ye forth, each man, girt with his weapons of war, his bow and his sword, and we will go and fight against the uncircumcised. The Lord is our God. He will save us. Jacob, his 11 sons and 100 servants, belonging to Isaac, who had come to their assistance, marched forward to meet the Amorites a people exceeding numerous, like unto the sand upon the sea shore. The sons of Jacob sent unto their grandfather Isaac at Hebron, requesting him to pray unto the Lord, to protect them from the hand of the Canaanites. And he prayed as follows: O Lord God, thou didst promise my father, saying, I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven. And also me thou didst promise that thou wouldst establish thy word to my father. Now, O Lord, God of the whole world, pervert, I pray thee, the counsel of these kings, that they may not fight against my sons, and impress the hearts of their kings and their people with the terror of my sons, and bring down their pride, that they turn away from my sons. Deliver my sons and their servants from them with thy strong hand and outstretched arm, for power and might are in thy hands to do all this. Jacob also prayed unto God and said, O Lord God, powerful and exalted God, who has reigned from days of old, from them until now and forever, thou art he who stirreth up wars and causeth them to cease. In thy hand are power and might to exalt and to bring low. Oh, may my prayer be acceptable unto thee, that thou mayest turn to me with thy mercies, to impress the hearts of these kings and their people with the terror of my sons, and terrify them and their camps, and with their great kindness deliver all those that trust in thee, for thou art he who subdues the peoples under us, and the nations under our feet. God heard the prayers of Isaac and Jacob, and he filled the hearts of all the advisors of the Canaanite kings with great fear and terror. And when the kings, who were undecided whether to undertake a campaign against the sons of Jacob, consulted them, they said, Are you silly? Or is there no understanding in you, that you propose to fight with the Hebrews? Why do you take delight in your own destruction this day? Behold, 2 of them came to the city of Shechem without fear or terror, and they put all the inhabitants of the city to the sword. No man stood up against them. And how will you be able to fight with them all? The royal counselors then proceeded to enumerate all the mighty things God had done for Abraham, Jacob, and the sons of Jacob, such as had not been done from the days of old, and by any of the gods of the nations. When the kings heard all the words of their advisors, they were afraid of the sons of Jacob, and they would not fight against them. They turned back with their armies on that day, each to his own city. But the sons of Jacob kept their station that day till evening, and seeing that the kings did not advance to do battle with them in order to avenge the inhabitants of Shechem, whom they had killed, they returned home. The wrath of the Lord descended upon the inhabitants of Shechem to the uttermost on account of their wickedness. For they had sought to do unto Sarah and Rebekah as they did unto Dinah, but the Lord had prevented them. Also, they had persecuted Abraham when he was a stranger, and they had vexed his flocks when they were big with young. And Iblaim, one born in his house, they had handled most shamefully. And thus they did to all strangers, taking away their wives by force. I don't know if this is something different. I guess the war with the Ninevites. So I'll stop here.
Uh,
Is it continuing?
Yeah, it looks like it.
All right, I'll just
I'll
read.
That's interesting. Coming from Nineveh, isn't that north?
It's different, for sure. Because all these kings backed off and went home. They were full of fear. So
yeah, it's in Upper Mesopotamia, so it's in northern.
I'll read just a little bit and see.
Okay.
If it has continuation. The destruction of Shechem by Simon and Levi terrified the heathen all around. If two sons of Jacob had succeeded in ruining a great city, like Shechem, they argued, what would Jacob and all his sons accomplish, acting together? Jacob, meanwhile, left Shechem hindered by none, and with all his possessions he set out to betake himself to his father Isaac. But after an 8 days' march he encountered a powerful army which had been dispatched from Nineveh to levy tribute upon the whole world and subjugate it. On coming in the vicinity of Shechem, this army heard to what the city had been exposed at the hands of the sons of Jacob, and fury seized the men, and they resolved to make war upon Jacob. But Jacob said to his sons, fear not, God will be your helper, and he will fight for you against your enemies. Only you must put away from you the strange gods in your possession, and you must purify yourselves and wash your garments clean. Girt with his sword, Jacob advanced against the enemy in the first onslaught. He slew 12,000 of the weak in the army. Then Judah spake to him and said, Father, thou art tired and exhausted. Let me fight the enemy alone. And Jacob replied, saying, Judah, my son, I know thy strength and thy bravery, that they are exceeding great, so that none in the world is like unto thee therein. His countenance like a lion's, and inflamed with wrath, Judah attacked the army and slew 12 myriads of tried and famous warriors. The battle raged hot in front and in the rear, and Levi his brother hastened to his aid, and together they won a victory over the Ninevites. Judah alone slew 5,000 more soldiers, and Levi dealt blows right and left with such vigor that the men of the enemy's army fell like grain under the scythe of the reaper. Alarmed about their fate, the people of Nineveh said, how long shall we fight with these devils? Let us return to our land, lest they exterminate us, root and branch, without leaving a remnant. But their king desired to restrain them. And he said, O ye heroes, ye men of might and valor, have ye lost your senses that you ask to return to your land? Is this your bravery? After ye have subdued many kingdoms and countries, you are not able to hold out against 12 men? If the nations and the kings whom we have made tributary to ourselves hear of this, they will rise up against us as a man, and make a laughingstock of us, and do with us according to their desire. Take courage, ye men of the great city of Nineveh, that your honor and your name be exalted, and you become not a mockery in the mouth of your enemies. These words of their king inspired the warriors to continue the campaign. They sent messengers to all the lands to ask for help, and reinforced by their allies, the Ninevites assaulted Jacob a second time. He spoke to his son, saying, take courage and be men. Fight against your enemies. His 12 sons then took up their stand in 12 different places, leaving considerable intervals between one and another. And Jacob, a sword in his right hand and a bow in his left, advanced to the combat. It was a desperate encounter for him. He had to ward off the enemy to the right and the left. Nevertheless, he inflicted a severe blow, and when a band of 2,000 men beset him, he leapt up in the air and over them and vanished from their sight. 22 myriads he slew on this day, and when evening came, he planned to flee under cover of darkness, but suddenly 90,000 men appeared, and he was compelled to continue the fight. He rushed at them with his sword, but it broke, and he had to defend himself by grinding huge rocks into lime powder and this he threw at the enemy and blinded them, so that they could see nothing. Luckily, darkness was about to fall, and he could permit himself to take rest for the night. In the morning, Judah said to Jacob, Father, thou didst fight the whole of yesterday, and thou art weary and exhausted. Let me fight this day. When the warriors caught sight of Judah's lion face and his lion teeth and heard his lion voice, they were greatly afraid. Judah hopped and jumped over the army like a flea, from one warrior to the next, raining blows down upon them. Incessantly, and by evening he had slain 80,096 men, armed with swords and bows. But fatigue overcame him. And Zebulun took up his station in his brother's left hand and moved down 80,000 of the enemy, mowed down 80,000 of the enemy. Meantime, Judah regained some of his strength, and rising up in wrath and fury and gnashing his teeth with a noise like unto thunder, claps in midsummer, he put the army to flight. It ran a distance of 18 miles, and Judah could enjoy a respite that night. But the army reappeared on the morrow, ready for battle again to take revenge on Jacob and his children. They blew their trumpets, whereupon Jacob spake to his sons, Go forth and fight with your enemies. Issachar and Gad said that this day they would take the combat upon themselves, and their father bade them do it while their brothers kept guard and held themselves in readiness to aid and relieve the two combatants when they showed signs of weariness and exhaustion. Let me see how much more of this. The leaders of the day slew 48,000 warriors and put to flight 12 myriads more, who concealed themselves in a cave. Issachar and Gad fetched trees from the woods, piled the trunks up in front of the opening of the cave, and set fire to them. When the fire blazed with a fierce flame, the warriors spoke, saying, Why should we stay in this cave and perish with the smoke and the heat? Rather we will go forth and fight with our enemies. Then we may have a chance of saving ourselves. They left the cave, going through openings at the side, and they attacked Issachar and Gad in front and behind. Dan and Naphtali saw the plight of their brothers and ran to their assistance. They laid about with their swords, hewing a way for themselves to Issachar and Gad, and united with them, they opposed the foe. It was the third day of the conflict, and the Ninevites were reinforced by an army, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. All the sons of Jacob united to oppose it, and they routed the host. But when they pursue after the enemy, the fugitives faced about and resumed the battle, saying, Why should we run away? Let us rather fight them. Perhaps we may be victorious. Now they are weary. A stubborn combat ensued, and when Jacob saw the vehement attack upon his children, he himself sprang into the thick of the battle and dealt blows right and left. Nevertheless, the heathen were victorious and succeeded in separating Judah from his brethren. As soon as Jacob was aware of the peril of his son, he whistled, and Judah responded, and his brethren hastened to his aid. Judah was fatigued and parched with thirst, and there was no water for him to drink. But he dug his finger into the ground with such force that water gushed out in the sight of the whole army. Then said one warrior to another, I will flee before these devils, for God fights on their side. And he and all the army fled precipitately, pursued by the sons of Jacob. Soldiers without number they slew, and then they went back to their tents. On their return they noticed that Joseph was missing, and they feared he had been killed or taken captive. Naphtali ran after the retreating enemy to make search for Joseph, and he found him still fighting against the Ninevite army. He joined Joseph and killed countless soldiers, and of the fugitives many drowned, and the men that were besetting Joseph ran off and left him in safety. At the end of the war, Jacob continued his journey unhindered to his father Isaac.
Yeah, that's even before the Amorites.
Yeah, the war with the Amorites.
Man, it's like the whole family was like a bunch of Samsons.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were, not only blessed by the Most High, but said to be powerful, and everybody had the fear of them. So, yeah, we see even in the story of, Levi and Shimeon wiping out the whole city of Shechem. I mean, yeah, they were under the pain of circumcision, but still, that's a lot of people that they destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's a painful event, but once the adrenaline kicks in a situation like that, if these guys are actually warriors, they would have still put up a fight.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, some of the stuff seems like just so outrageously embellished.
Right.
But at the same time, what we have even in the canonized text with Samson, the
donkey,
jawbone of a donkey,
jawbone. Right,
is like, well, what if all these guys were like Samson's?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen other stories as well. Like in reading the Legends of the Jews, there's other stories of great warriors proving that God was on their side. They would go and fight entire camps by themselves just to show that they had the favor of the Most High, and then come back. I don't remember the exact as far as the prophet that this was assigned to, but there are many different types of stories of the Israelites going out, and different prophets and leaders and patriarchs performing just incredible feats, as far as the destruction of entire armies. And we also see, the angels coming forth and slaughtering entire camps without the Israelites having to do anything. And so, I mean, those are, supernatural as well.
Well, that's what makes you wonder is, were these people all like Samson with actual physical strength and ability, a whole bunch of Conan the Barbarians, or were there angels assisting them in the battles? And they're still out there doing their thing, but, were they angel assisted? I don't know, but I mean, even, bringing it up a little close, not still pretty far away, but a little bit closer to our time would be the Maccabees. And,
exactly.
You read through their accounts and they were putting up quite a fight, hundreds or even thousands of years later. I don't know what the time difference is from the wars that you're just reading in the Maccabees, how much time transpired, but, they're like, what, here's the deal. And they said the same thing, it's like our forefathers, if God be for us, who can be against us? These are what our forefathers did. So, because they're worried about fighting on the Sabbath, because the Seleucids or whoever they were fighting, the Greeks or whatever, that they're like, hey, these guys don't fight on the Sabbath. Cool.
Let's attack them. Yeah.
Yeah. They wait the Sabbath and wipe out everybody. And the Maccabees like, okay, if we keep doing this, we're all dead. So the question is, should we fight on the Sabbath? They're like, well, if we don't do anything, we're dead. And if we do something wrong on the Sabbath, we're dead. So what do we got to lose? Let's give it a shot and see if Yahuwah blesses us.
Right.
And they were quoting all the various saints with the zeal that they had, Phineas, Pinchas, and different people. And and they went out there with, they were like the Braveheart of the Bible.
Right.
Pretty wild stuff. But I think that brings us to the end of this show. So another good show, man. We'll pick up next week on your show and continue where we left off in our study of Genesis. And I don't know if I'm going to release it this Sunday or not. I don't want to rush it. I want to make sure I get this video done to my liking, and then I'll do some kind of event for the premiere of the first episode of Seed, or the first teaser for the first episode of Seed anyway. So
awesome. Sounds good.
That should be fun.
We'll definitely talk about those NFTs too.
Yeah, for sure. If I can get this video done in the next day or two, I'll have time, and then you and I can chat offline and figure that out, as well as other cryptos.
All right, man.
All right, brother. Thanks again. And thank you guys so much for listening to the Revolutionary Radio Project. We'll see you back next week, 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all. Shalom.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you, and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.